Hey Daniel, how you doing?
Hi, Risa. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, but I'm not in Mexico.
Yeah, where are you now?
I know. I'm in New York,
You're in New
and
York.
it's much colder up here than it is down there. So
You can keep
I
it.
might have to go. I might have to go online and buy a ticket right after this.
Yeah, well, no, the city's been really, really booming right now. I think everyone's anxious to get out of the house and then go see Mother Nature. So
Yeah, no
Vallarta's
kidding.
perfect for that. Yeah.
Oh God. So today we're going to talk about pre-construction and resale, right? But before we get to that, I think we need to have like kind of a bigger picture explanation of what you really need to know before you even go look for a property.
Well, Banderas Bay, where Puerto Vallarta is located along the Pacific Ocean coastline, the whole bay's been booming. I mean, you have construction from the North Shore, like Bucerias and La Cruz de Guanacaxtle, down to Fluvial and Versalles, where we have our Costco. Romantic Zone and the South Shore, Conchas Chinas is booming right now. So, because of the demand for just homes and condos, there's a lot of construction happening everywhere. And our pre sale contracts are quite different than resale contracts. Because most of new construction can take anywhere from typically around a year and a half to 2.5 years, depending on the scale of the project and if it's located, let's say, in the mountainside where it's more difficult to get heavy machinery up there, or if it's being built on the flats, so in a corner lot or a center lot. So all of that makes a big difference in terms of how fast the construction can get completed. So with that, for our real estate association here in Puerto Vallarta, our resale contracts are pretty much there's a standard. They're pretty similar. But for pre-sale, every developer typically has their own contracts, which are quite unique and different from the other.
Well,
And
so
because the
if you have a pre-construction and a resale, either way they have to be purchased through a trust. Is that right?
so Puerto Vallarta is in the restricted zone, which is within 50 kilometers from the coastline. So for a foreigner acquiring property in the restricted zone, the title has to be held in a trust with a bank. Only the banks are allowed to have trust here. So we call that a real estate trust. So the trust has a term of 50 years, and then you could renew it another 50 years indefinitely. If you're buying more than 50 kilometers inland, like Mexico City or Guadalajara, San Miguel de Allende, the foreigner will not need a trust, even though you can get one if you'd like.
So
So,
does that mean they really own the property? Do they have the same rights as owning title directly? I
right.
mean, what does that really mean?
Yeah, they have the same rights of ownership, but through the trust. So the title is held under the bank's name. It's not an asset of the bank. You, as a foreigner resale, let's say, you would be the primary beneficiary of the trust, kind of like the owner in a sense, and then you would have your substitute beneficiaries, which are your heirs. So you want to leave it to your kids. You want to leave it to, I don't know, a charity or to me. So I would so I would be the substitute
Of course.
beneficiary. Of course, come on. We're like family. So that's how the trust works over here. All right. So the pre-construction contracts, because they're pre-construction, it's not completed. You're not closing in 45 days or 60 days, and getting your deed. So because of pre-construction, the timeline is a lot further out. Along with that, you've got the installments of payments. Now, every development does it differently. Some of the projects I've represented, the payments that the developer receives is based on a milestone that they hit in construction. Typically, at the signing of the contract, you will have a substantial down payment to put. It could be anywhere from 20% to 35%. And the corresponding payments after that will be on the milestone. So, for example, a portion will be owed when the foundation is completed. Another percentage will be owed when up to a certain floor, the exterior structure is done. And then another percentage when 100% of the structure is done. And the final payment is when they deliver the unit to you. Other developments I've seen, they get the substantial down payment at the signing of the contract, and then they get a quarterly payment and then a final payment when they deliver. In other projects, they're making monthly payments along the way until delivery of the unit. So every project is quite different. Just because a developer has their own payment terms and conditions doesn't mean that you can't put in an offer and pay differently. Some developers might be amicable to that, some won't, but it doesn't hurt to ask the listing agent to see if that developer would be willing to modify some of those payment terms.
Are there any kind of like red flags that people should be aware of or thinking about? Because pre-construction is risky, right?
Yeah,
No
yeah,
matter where you go.
yeah,
And just making sure that that developer, how do you do your homework to make sure that that developer is
yeah.
legit and is going to build the building they say they're going to
Yeah,
build, right?
yeah, that's a great question, and every pre-construction or even resale, there are some inherent risks involved. That's why it's really important to hire a real estate attorney and have a reputable agent who can investigate for you. Finding out the developer's history, if they worked on other projects, their financial standing, how is the project being funded? Do they have the title to the land where the development's going up? Do they have their construction permits, environmental impact study? Do they have the authorized plans from the city? So there are a lot of documents, the articles of incorporation, if the builder is a company versus an individual. And key thing is, of course, as I mentioned, is how is the project funded? Is it funded 100% by the developer? I've had some projects where the developer paid for everything. He didn't have to sell one unit to finish the building. But for the most part, a lot of projects, the developer, excuse me, will have some type of a bank line of credit that they'll tap into for the project, and of course, some of the construction costs might come from pre-sales as well. So having a real estate attorney to investigate and do a deep dive into that is really important, really key. That doesn't mean the project's going to be completed. I mean, anything can happen in life as we know it. There could be a health crisis around the world. There'll be another lockdown. Um, you know, the real estate market can just tank. So you just never know. So, but you can
Is there
all
a
you
way to
can.
protect yourself from, unforeseeable disasters like that, that where you could get your money back? Is there any recourse if you decide, you're down the line and you get sick and you decide that you're not going to do it anymore? What
Yeah,
happens in that case?
yeah, good question. So again, the purchase sale contract, you want to make sure you cover all those angles and all those ends. You can get payments bonded. There are some companies that will bond your payment. That's a cost that the buyer, the consumer, has to pay for. So that option is available. I know it's a bit pricey, but if you want that peace of mind, that is available for you. Some developers have the project in a trust, so you own a piece of the trust. So God forbid, if things were to go sideways, you might have some money coming back to you if they sell the project down the road. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can think of how to protect yourself, but there's also a lot of things we can't think of that might happen. That's just kind of the way it is in life in general, right? You try to protect yourself as well as you can. And again, hiring a reputable real estate attorney that knows the laws in that specific region and knows exactly what to look for. And also, you want to look for the penalties in case the developer does not deliver by a certain time. Usually, there's a grace period, but beyond that point, then what? Is he going to pay me $50 a day, $100 a day that they're late delivering? And can that penalty be applied towards or deducted from their final payment to the developer when they finally deliver the project? So, yeah.
Wow. And I mean, of course, the big upside to buying pre-construction is the price, right? You're buying in at a much lower price than if it were already built, like a resale. I think that that's partially why it feels so attractive to people, and then they're buying something brand new, right?
Sure. Yes. So one of the advantages that's very appealing to prospective buyers is the pricing. Usually when the first pricing that's released to the public generally is the best discounted price out there. That's not to say the developer might not offer some type of a special down the road. The sales aren't going the way they want them to, but generally speaking, the first tier of pricing available to the public in a pre-construction tends to be the best discounted price. Of course, the inherent risk is, it's just dirt. So the greater the risk to the consumer, developer generally offers a better discount. And then as a project is forging ahead, they're selling more units, then the discounts typically diminish, right? So that's kind of how it goes. So the closer they get to completing it, there's less and less of a discount because the consumers risk goes down and there's a real estate sitting right in front of you and it's just not air.
Wow. So then when people are looking at resale, that's just
Mhm.
buying a condo that's on MLS or some other sort of listing. Are there certain key things that people should be thinking about when purchasing a property in PV? Like what should they know?
Well, when you're going to buy a property, I mean, for me, it's really important to find out, the comparables. Number one is, you don't want to overpay for a property, and you want to make sure that's priced right. If you're getting a great discount, then wonderful. So having the facts at your fingertips is really important. Is looking at the comparables, and then speaking to your agent about it to see, are there any issues with the building? Why is their unit available for sale? Why are they selling? You know, People like to find out a bit about the seller and about the building to see, are they having a lot of issues? And then looking at the purchase sale agreement, going through all the details. So a resale contract is very different than a pre-construction contract, you know. So
In
you
what
typically
way?
well, first of all, the condo is done. So if you're buying in a condo, right, you get a condo regime, you get a copy of the deed of the seller. You want to look at the financials for the building. So typically in our resale contracts, we ask for 2 or 3 years of the financial statements for the association. You want to ask for the minutes of the HOA assembly, which is they have their annual meetings the first quarter of the year in Jalisco. That's the law. So you want to look at the minutes for the last 2 or 3 years to see what they've been discussing, what they've been doing. Also, is everyone paying their HOA dues, right? And then you find out, if the seller has an employee, like the maid, is the maid hired directly through the owner or through a property management company? Because if they're hired through the owner, then there are other steps to take to liquidate that employee. Also, doing the home inspection. When doing pre-construction, I mean, it's just dirt, right? Until the unit is done, you do a walkthrough before delivery. But in resale, you typically do have a home inspection done. And I'm surprised sometimes, Risa, people buying a condo or house, and they want to bypass the home inspection. Now, I understand in a hot market, sometimes you're trying to make some concessions to get the deal. But if you're spending, a good amount of money, I think you might want to do a home inspection because there might be things going on in the unit that we don't see, superficially, right? So the home
Yeah, that's
inspection,
frightening. I can't
yeah,
believe people forego an
some
inspection.
Yeah, and and sometimes if the unit is new and it's only a year old, some buyers think, the place looks fine. I'm like, are you sure? The home inspection is maybe a couple of $100, but that's their call, right? But having a home inspection clause in our resale contracts is very important, and they're usually there. And then you fund money into escrow. We use escrow here in Puerto Vallarta. It's not very common in Mexico, so don't be surprised if you're buying in Mexico City or Guadalajara. As a foreigner, as an American, especially, in the states we use escrow all the time. You ask like, well, are we using escrow? And they were like, what's that? So in Vallarta though we do use escrow, and the escrow here is quite different than an escrow in the states. It functions differently here.
Oh, in what
Um,
way?
well, they just hold the funds here. I mean, they don't have any other integral role in the operation, nothing with title search or anything else. So they're kind of like almost like a bank in a sense. They're just holding the funds, and then they disperse when they get all the required documents in their possession after closing. That's pretty much all they do. Some escrow companies might offer title insurance, but that's basically it for the most part, right? Whereas in the developer pre-sale contract, that's another thing. The funds are being wired directly to the developer. They don't generally use escrow over here, and that's one reason why you're getting the discount that you're getting. The developer is receiving the funds, and they're probably using some of those funds to fund the project
Oh, wow. So when you buy a pre-sale,
Mhm.
pre-construction, you're literally wiring your money to that company,
To the developers, yeah, to their
to the
companies,
developer
to whatever
company.
bank account. That is correct. Yes, yeah. So another key reason why you want to make sure you're buying through a reputable developer who has a track history, who has the financial backing, has all the ducks lined up. And again, that's not going to be 100% guarantee, but make sure you have your attorney investigate that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I know you mentioned that so people are doing pre-construction everywhere throughout the Bay, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Is there certain kinds of amenities that people should, I don't know.
they're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. What kinds of things are people building these days?
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good question. The way we work and live, especially these last couple of years, has kind of shifted in a sense. So some of the things people are asking for that some developers are including now. One project that we have on Los Muertos Beach is you have a dedicated home office area now. So in the old days, of just kind of flipping your laptop on your kitchen counter or your terrace, and just working there for a few minutes and just kind of packing it up, doesn't work anymore because a lot of people are working from home. They're coming down to Vallarta or other places in the world, and they're able to work remotely. Having a dedicated home office has become more part of our new lifestyle than ever before. So having a that's one thing that we're building now is you're seeing more of is a dedicated home office. But if the units aren't big enough to have that, some condo buildings are actually building a co-working space with conference rooms, which is new. You might some buildings were having like a little office area, in the lobby. But you actually now have co-working spaces, with like multiple tables and private conference rooms. Having a fitness center has become really important, especially in Vallarta. Some areas are all cobblestone streets, so it's not easy to go out and just kind of jog on the cobblestone streets, and the gyms might not be within walking distance. So having a home, I'm sorry, association fitness center is really important. Pools, no, we're out in the sun here. Average temperature year round is in the low mid 80s. So having a nice pool is really important for a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
Um,
there's been some. I feel like everybody is kind of upping their game now in Vallarta. Like
yes,
it's
yeah,
just so fancy.
yeah, everyone's upping their game. Absolutely. When I moved over here, Vallarta wasn't as popular as it is now, and the condo buildings back then, the only thing they really had was just a pool, and that was fine for everyone. People weren't staying here for a long period of time, weeks on end or months on end. And there are a lot of place like mom and pop businesses where you can just drop off your laundry and they wash and dry and fold everything and you go back and pick up a bag. But now, all the new condos that they're building, you have your dedicated like a laundry room or laundry closet. So that's a common feature now in a lot of the new buildings.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah, and
awesome.
also now we're building like movie theaters inside the condominium. So in one project in Fluvial, we have a 16-seat movie theater, which is great for families or if you just want to have a movie night with friends coming over.
Wow, it's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so for example, in Fluvial, that development that you're talking about, what would
Mhm.
be a starting price for a unit there at this stage?
Yes.
Before they've even broken ground. Have they broken ground?
No, they're going to break ground. I believe it's going to be in about 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. They're going to break ground. We actually had a number of pre-sales already. It just went live in the MLS about a week ago. So a one bedroom is starting with the best discount is starting like just under 168,000. And it goes up to like, three, four, five, $600,000. It's 8 stories, the building, 95 units. It's got all the bells and whistles. So it's one square block. So if you want to check it out, it's a Valarte PV, VALARTE, PV.com.
That's so great. And so you're saying, so if someone, how does one decide whether or not they should go for pre-construction or whether they should go for a resale?
Yeah. Everyone's coming from a different place. There are some people that want the new and shiny thing, all the bells and whistles. We have a lot of clients that want old world Mexican architecture, so and for that, you're looking at a building that was probably built like in the 80s and the 70s. Because starting from like around 2004, 2005, we started having all these new modern buildings, kind of like the Jetsons, and futuristic and white clean lines and very minimalist. And then in recent years, developers have gotten a little bit more creative. So some of them are kind of tying in the local neighborhood and the flair in their construction. So using more natural stones, some brick, and some earth tones in the coloring and the paints, and more plants. So there's depending on where you go, which part of the city, you're going to see different styles of architecture for sure, and different size units. So, in the romantic zone, a lot of the large lots are gone. So the footprint of the buildings are a lot smaller. So the units are smaller. But if you go to Conchas Chinas, you're going to get larger units. There's more land, and when the further south you go, typically people are living there more long term, months on end, and they want the space. So in the romantic zone, they might be here for about a week or two. They want to go out and have fun and just rent it out. So the units are a bit more smaller and comfortable for short term rentals.
Well, and so do you see there's an equal surge in pre-construction as there are in resale, or is resale still more popular?
Yeah, things are selling left, right, and center. I just had a new listing, a resale, come online last night, and I had three agents ask me for the legal description, and the legal description is the first few pages of the deed to write up an offer. I just received three of those this morning, and I think I've got a few text messages. My phone's been vibrating all day, all day, and I think it's regards to that new listing. So we've been getting, multiple bids, two, three, six different offers on a unit. That was unheard of a few years ago, but people are coming down here. Again, it's that supply and demand. And for pre-construction, now pre-construction takes a while to launch. So a developer might be working behind the scenes for a year, year and a half, sometimes almost 2 years until the project goes online. So if you're seeing a shortage of inventory, it's because it just takes a while to get these pre-construction projects kind of launched. And the MLS here in Vallarta, they have a very long, like a laundry list of documents you have to provide before they even authorize the project to go live in the MLS. So when you see a project that's not in the MLS, you know just again make sure your attorney asks for all these documents, because for the MLS to accept the development, the pre-construction, you have to provide everything. If you're missing one piece of document, they'll just say, okay, well then, let us know when you get it, and it'll go live.
Right. Absolutely. I think this, plays into the what we've been saying in all of our interviews about how important it is to get the right information. No matter
Yes.
what it is that you're doing, when you're moving to Mexico, it's a foreign country. The laws are not what you're familiar with. They just don't do the things the same way, nor should they. It's a different country.
Yeah.
And that's why we created Dream Retirement in Mexico, so that you have your real estate, you have your attorney, your healthcare, your accounting, your banking, all in one spot. That it's all information that is reliable by top experts, which is so, so critical, because you've told me, I've heard this so much and I've seen it myself, of so much misinformation on the internet, right? And that's scary. So yeah,
Yeah.
so if people want to find out a little bit more about that, they can go to dreamretirementinmexico.com. And that's a program that, you can kind of check out when you're ready, and when you're ready to kind of make that very serious leap towards making the move to Mexico. But so any final thoughts on how people should decide, do I go pre-construction or do I go resale, or I don't know,
Yeah.
and does it matter what city? Like, are there certain cities, whether it's, the Banderas Bay or anywhere in Mexico, where I don't know, pre-construction is more popular or resales are more popular? I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm just kind of thinking, because I think there are some newer cities, right, where pre-construction is like through the roof and predominant, like basically is overtaken the town.
Yeah, I mean, look, Vallarta is predominantly a condo, real estate market here, right? Because most of our buyers are pushing retirement. I don't say baby boomers, and even Generation X. They're 50 and up, and they're looking at kind of like downsizing their life and their responsibilities and all the headaches. So going with a condo just allows them to have that lifestyle that they're looking for as they're kind of you know pushing towards retirement. And there are other, cities and regions where condo buildings are not popular. It's basically homes. Some of them are more old colonial homes. I was just in Oaxaca City a few months ago, and I didn't see any condo buildings up there. There are old colonial buildings that are maybe 2 or 3 stories high, but that was it. Everything else was a house. That's a house culture over there. And Oaxaca City, it's not as popular as Vallarta. So the real estate market is totally different there. Finding a house there is not necessarily easy because they don't come on the market as frequently. It's not that kind of an environment like you would expect in Cabo, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, or in San Miguel de Allende. In San Miguel de Allende, I think it's more of a house market there versus the high rises that you would see in more of the coastal towns. Um, should people go for pre-construction or resale? Resale, honestly, you know what? You know what your style is, you know what your taste is, and you know what your tolerance is in terms of, can I go with pre-construction? Am I comfortable, or is resale, the better route for me? Only the consumer can answer that question. But having the right information so you could make that decision is really key. You know, you can't make a decision if you don't know, and having the right decision is important here. And that's what your attorney is going to provide, and that's when the professionals, the experts that you're going to have to consult are going to provide. It's kind of scary going to a new country and just doing this on your own. Just know that there are people there that want to help you, and there are people there that want to scam you. So I mean, there's everything out there, right? Even when you go to Vegas, it's the same thing, right? So you just want to make sure that you're talking to the right people, you're listening to the right people, you're getting the right advice, and then in the end you just kind of pull that all together, and then you say yay or nay. That's the best that you can do.
That's great. So, as we wrap this up, things you should consider if you want to do pre construction: it is a longer timeline,
Hmm.
it is probably less expensive than if you were to do a
Sometimes.
real resale. Well, if you were to buy that same unit, 5 years
Yeah.
down the line, 10
Yeah.
years down the line,
Yeah.
technically it should be cheaper
Yeah.
at pre construction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to wait 2 or 3 years to move in, or a year and a half, versus you want to move in right away, within 60, 90 days. I have clients of mine, all they want is resale for that fact. They don't want to wait, 2 years down the road. They want something now. They want to move in and enjoy it. They want to get out of the cold climate, the hectic lifestyle that they have, and they can't wait 2 more years. They'll go, berserk.
Yeah, like me.
Like you.
Well, Taniel, thank you so much. This has been really, really helpful.
Thank you, Risa. It's been great. It's nice seeing you again.
You too. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.